From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. I'm Evan Smith, and these are your headlines for 12 o'clock. Former Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum was found not guilty of public mischief. The politician was accused of lying to the police in September of 2021 for falsely accusing an opponent of intentionally running over his foot in the parking lot of a supermarket. Judge Reginald Harris stated he believed the medical and physical evidence proved that Debbie Johnstone ran over McCallum's foot. Mounties in the West Kootenays are praising several young hockey players for coming forward after finding a hidden cell phone in their changing room at a local arena. Police state that the group of girls were getting ready for their hockey practice in Fruitvale last Wednesday when one discovered a phone that had been jammed in the ceiling and was recording the dressing room. Trail RCMP say the phone belonged to a 21-year-old employee of the arena who was arrested on site. They say investigators will be recommending a charge of voyeurism against the man, who is released on conditions that include no contact with the alleged victims. BC Premier David Eby has announced a new housing affordability plan for British Columbians. With more on the story, Evan Tate.
The announcement comes Monday morning in an effort to increase the housing supply in BC. Eby's new Housing Supply Act will identify BC municipalities with the greatest need for new housing infrastructure and work together with the municipal government to set housing targets. The Premier also addressed the province's Strata Property Act and proposed amendments to ban most rental and age restrictions in strata. These changes to the act would allow young families to find more housing and prevent them from being evicted for starting a family. Premier Eby says more than 1.5 million British Columbians currently live in strata-ran buildings. Evan Tate, 1680, The Crow.
And joining us now, reporter Evan Tate. Evan, thanks for joining us. How will Eby's housing plan affect senior housing?
Thanks, Evan. Eby made it clear in his announcement that providing seniors with housing is a priority of his. His proposed amendment should not impact seniors' housing as the new strata laws will still allow seniors-only strata buildings to restrict occupancy to people aged 55 and older.
And if passed, when will the new laws take effect?
Thank you, Evan. If the Housing Supply Act is passed, it will take effect mid-2023, with the municipalities advised to create new housing being notified before its enactment. As for the strata law changes, they will take effect immediately across the province once passed by the government. Evan?
Thanks, Evan. More Canadians are moving back to their parents' house, and a PhD candidate in sociology at UBC is working on a study to explain how living inside these households. David Nava with the story.
According to the 2021 census, about 35% of young adults between the ages of 25 to 34 are living with at least one parent. Umay Kadash, a sociology student at UBC, explains that media constantly focus on the economic aspect, when in reality, statistics show that full-time employees are more likely to live with their parents than part-time employees.
It's important because we don't know the side of young adults who are living together with their parents. Like, we don't know what it means to them and how do they feel about it, how do they navigate this situation.
Kadash expects that with her study, politicians understand this situation better, which will lead to better strategies on aspects such as housing, inflation, and homes for elders. David Nava, 1680 The Crow.
A document displayed at the public inquiry into Ottawa's use of the Emergencies Act to clear Freedom Convoy protesters shows the Canadian Security Intelligence Service was unaware of any tangible plans for violence before protesters arrived. The information was relayed in a briefing note to Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino in late January. David Vigneault, director of the country's security service, was one intelligence official who testified today at a public inquiry into the convoy.
At that point, CSIS assessment was that we did not see specific actions being taken that would characterize a threat to the security of Canada.
The man suspected of killing 5 people and injuring others at a gay bar in Colorado Springs used an AR-15 style semi-automatic weapon in Saturday night's shooting.
The AR-style rifle the 22-year-old allegedly had when police say he opened fire inside of this club was legally bought by the suspect. According to sources briefed on the investigation, the mayor here says he was extremely well armed. Police believe he had a second gun as well. The alleged shooter was arrested in 2021 over a bomb threat, but because that court case does not appear to have moved forward, it may not have flagged on background checks. Alex Stone, ABC News, Colorado Springs.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams praised authorities for quickly uncovering and thwarting a possible attack against the city's synagogues or Jewish centers over the weekend. Two men, Christopher Brown and Matthew Meyer, were arrested at Penn Station Saturday after Brown reportedly made targeted anti-Semitic threats online. Metropolitan Transportation Authority Chief Jano Lieber says Governor Kathy Hochul has called for vulnerable communities to be given additional security heading into the holidays.
In light of this incident and the attack in Colorado Springs on the LGBTQ nightclub, the governor has directed our state police, who are represented here today, to increase surveillance and protection for communities like the Jewish community that are at risk of hate crimes.
Israel's top general is paying one final visit to Washington to discuss the critical U.S.-Israeli alliance.
The head of the Israeli army, General Aviv Kohavi, in Washington for a 5-day visit to meet with top U.S. security and defense officials. Among them, CIA head William Burns and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. Iran once again set to top Kohavi's agenda, and not just the nuclear standoff. He'll discuss Iran's deepening military role in Russia's war in Ukraine, Tehran's recent escalation in regional attacks, for example on Iraq, and the implications of more than 9 weeks of anti-government protests sweeping across Iran. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Toronto Argonauts linebacker Hanoke Muamba was named both the most valuable player and most valuable Canadian of the Grey Cup on Sunday. The 11-year veteran recorded 3 tackles and an interception in the Argos' 24-23 victory over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It was Toronto's first Grey Cup victory since 2017. Meanwhile, the Bombers fell short of a three-peat after winning consecutive titles. It was Muamba's first Grey Cup title. The interception came with just 3 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the contest against the Bombers' quarterback, Zach Collaros. Muamba's pick put the Argos at Winnipeg's 43-yard line before teammate Boris Bede's 37-yard field goal attempt was blocked. Pittsburgh Penguins center Sidney Crosby, St. Louis Blues winger Pavel Buchanev, and Seattle Kraken goaltender Martin Jones have been named the NHL's 3 Stars of the Week. Crosby, 35, led the NHL in points with 4 goals and 7 assists over 4 games to lift the Penguins to a 3-1 week. The 2-time Hart Trophy winner posted a pair of 4-point nights with 2 goals and 2 assists in a 6-4 win over Minnesota on November 17th, and a goal and 3 helpers in a 5-3 victory over the Chicago Blackhawks on Sunday. Buchanev notched 3 goals and 4 assists in 4 games to power the Blues to a perfect week and stretch their winning streak to 6 games. The 27-year-old Russian capped his week with a career-high 4-point night, 2 goals and 2 assists, in a 6-2 win over Anaheim on Saturday. Jones sported a 1.90 goals against average and a 0.930 save percentage to guide the Krakens to a pair of overtime wins last week. The 32-year-old Jones, who signed with Seattle in July, has compiled a 9-4-2 record, 2.30 goals against average, .913 save percentage, and 1 shutout throughout his first 15 games this season. FIFA's threat of on-field punishment for players has pushed World Cup teams to back down. They abandoned a plan Monday for their captains to wear armbands that were seen as a rebuke to host nation Qatar's human rights record. Just hours before the first players wearing the armbands in support of the One Love campaign were set to take the field, FIFA warned they would immediately be shown yellow cards. That changed the calculus for the 7 European teams. They may have expected to merely be fine. The standoff was just the latest dispute that threatened to overshadow play on the field since being awarded the World Cup's hosting rights in 2010. Conservative Muslim Qatar has faced criticism of its treatment of low-paid migrant workers, as well as its criminalization of homosexuality. The third World Cup game today is underway as the United States take on Wales in a Group B showdown. Wales has not played in the World Cup since 1958. Wingers will take center stage in the matchup, with Captain Gareth Bale being the most accomplished player to don a Wales jersey. Christian Pulisic is the biggest name for the United States. The game kicked off at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'm Evan Smith, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
It's extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikka-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Siggi-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Hello, I'm your host Maham Hashmi for this episode of Companion Call. I'm going to be talking about a topic today that is a little bit hard to discuss. It's focused around domestic abuse and it's a sensitive topic, but I have two guests that will be kind of explaining it and explaining why it happens because it's something I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough. So I'm now joined by Sean Hogan, who is the former head of marketing for mental health facility. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Maham. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I'm also joined by Kaylee Gillard.
Yes, hi. Thanks for having us as well.
Thank you. And Kaylee is a former domestic abuse mentor. All right, so we're gonna be, I guess, diving in now. One thing that I've noticed is a lot of people struggle to understand why women find themselves in these type of situations, like toxic relationships or abusive relationships that are emotionally and or physically abusive. So I want to just see what you guys think are the top reasons why women usually find themselves in those situations.
It's a good question. One thing I've observed, it's obviously a spectrum, but it seems to be that financial abuse is often in the situation wherein the partner has made his girlfriend or wife financially dependent on him, or it's just kind of flowed in that way. Yep. Imbalances of power. Another thing that I observe often is, mental health both on the woman's side and on the men's side if it's a hetero partnership, which often is very deep rooted, so it's probably something that has been in the female's life for a long time, and I think there's an element of I don't want to call it comfort, but the female maybe has had someone in their lives who have had similar mental health issues, so they're used to it, they're used to the energy of it, and maybe want to help the other person in their struggles, which kind of can create a codependency at times.
The toxic traits don't put up the red flags that they would in say if someone who's grown up with a very healthy, loving family, and not to say it doesn't happen to those who grew up in a healthy family, but it does tend to, you see it more often with women who have grown up with maybe their toxic traits were those, a little more aggressive
by their parents. Yeah,
and it just isn't something that puts up a red flag for you because it seems so normal, and maybe that's even a degree less than what they had at home. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what you see, where you see women stay in a relationship like that more often than not, or even end up into something like that because it just, reflects what their home life was originally.
Mm-hmm. And I think a third category I've seen, which actually surprised me, maybe this one is less common, but someone who has started in a really, what they think is a healthy relationship with someone, and abuse increases over the course of time, where they're, caught off guard, but by that time they're caught off guard, they're traumatized and in this very messy situation that they don't, it's just become very emotionally entangled.
And it could be that it's years down the line that all of these things have now started to compile, and they're really looking at the big picture, and maybe there's kids involved, there's a lot more of the family aspect. Now you're looking at actually leaving and a separation of that relationship, versus someone who, you know, is a single woman in a relationship and you become financially dependent. Yes, it's really hard to leave, but in that third category, there's a lot more to it, and they could be staying, you know, thinking that it's the better option for their family or their children. But
I think that the abuser also, either consciously or subconsciously, knows what's happening, and it's abuse tactics which create a dependency, or, well, I do really love this person and they don't actually mean it. This is just a moment, like he's just having an outburst or something, and maybe 80% of the time or 70% of the time the relationship is fine, but then there's 30% where things
yeah, the highs are high, the lows are low, is what I always say.
And that's very common with people who have bipolar disorder.
So
yeah, did you want to touch more on like the bipolar disorder, and like, because a lot of toxic relationships and abusive relationships, that's like a common mental health issue that like usually the abuser has?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things when someone has bipolar disorder. There's the godlike confidence that comes out, which can be attractive. There's the highs and the mania, where the person is a lot of fun, maybe the life of the party, perhaps taking the person on exciting trips. And then I think on the lower end of the spectrum, it's usually outbursts of anger, either like low depression where they don't want to go to bed. What I've witnessed the most is I think the anger that comes in the lower serotonin stages.
Yeah, you see them, you want to help them when they're in those low moments, because the high moments you've built this great relationship that you see, and then there are low moments where they're mad and angry, and you're like, we can help them. I mean, that's the more it happens, the more that pattern goes on, and the farther in you go into that relationship. So
I think that, and there's hope, right? Like, oh, well, this is only going to happen a few times. I think for me, the biggest learning when I understood what bipolar disorder was, no, this is actually how the person is until he or she decides to get help for themselves. And even with help and medication, it can be a pretty persistent thing. My understanding is that these more severe mental illnesses present about 18, and if they're not supported with therapy or healthy lifestyle choices, even medication, it only gets worse.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that like women that like are in situations, it's like also due to like a lack of learning about like these mental illnesses, so they're not able to like identify it and they kind of think it's like normal?
I don't know if it's about the actual mental health of the abuser and what it is that they are diagnosed with, because in my experience it wasn't a diagnosed form of bipolar that the person I was with. I would say an extreme narcissism, and that word is thrown around a lot at what we hear in the media and podcasts and all that kind of stuff right now. It's brought up a lot, but I would just say in general, you're just involved with that person, and no matter what their title is and what they're going through,
you have a bond.
Yeah. And then when it comes down to it, I wouldn't say that learning and knowing more about that particular disorder is something that would help you stay out of it. I think it's learning what red flags are, setting your own boundaries, and learning deep within yourself is the only thing to keep you out of something like that. So
that's a good question. How do you support a friend going through it?
Yeah, because you can't.
I've been the friend and I've been in the relationship. I've been on both sides, and I think when you're in it, it's like a it's like a wormhole. You can't really see outside of it.
Well, and when friends are trying to get you out, you almost become defensive. The person you're with is separating you from your friends, and the people that are trying to get you away from them, they start to distance you from them. Anyone they see as a threat. So then all of a sudden, your friends and family who might be able to be there for you and supportive and understanding that this is wrong, you become defensive towards them now because the person you're with is putting that bug in your ear that they're not really good people, and they've totally manipulated you and changed that situation. So when
or they're not really your friends.
Yeah, and so when your friends are there and saying something to you, you become defensive of your partner, and then you talk less about what's going on, and you hide more. And so I think that's another big aspect, is it's really hard on the friend side to know what to say, what to do, and how to help. But being supportive and asking the questions that causes that person to look inwards versus telling them what they should be feeling or thinking. Asking them questions and getting them thinking about it. Getting that person, for me, it was journaling, and I didn't, have the means to be going to counseling and all that kind of stuff, but I did a lot of work of studying it myself, and there's a lot of free,
resources
out there, and when you're in it, you know better. It just has to be the right time to be able to get it back out.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think so. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that, Sean?
I think keeping, as the friend, it can be really frustrating, right? And it's but keeping the relationship there is more important, I think, than giving up on your friend or something like that. And knowing, I think it's hard when it's more severe, and if you know it's severe, I think that can be really painful. So setting your own boundaries around it, I suppose, but keeping that line of trust there and that line of communication there, and allowing the friend to know that you're going to be there for them no matter what, I think is important.
Yeah. It's having that friend group that will really come into play when the time comes. And it's like dealing with someone with an addiction. When you look at it, it's the same idea. That addiction has a hold on that person, whatever that addiction may be. Could be love, and actually that's another great resource when you are a person. I have people in my family who have gone through the 12 steps, and in support of that person, I decided to do the 12 steps with them. And I didn't do it for alcohol, but I did it for love. And that was a huge thing to realize that, you need to cut yourself off from the addiction of love. And so looking at any need, any desires, anything that resembles that addiction.
Would it be an addiction to distorted love? Because is that love? It's
that feeling, it's the search for
companionship.
Not even companionship, but just that
connection.
You're looking to fill a void that's there, and whether and that's why I say in all of this, the biggest thing is you need to do work on yourself. And I know that's no matter what, the number one thing is journaling and whatever it might be that causes you to look inwards and face those things that you may not want to face and come to terms with about your own self.
I feel that's an interesting concept, though, how I've evolved to understanding maybe lowercase love to capital case love. Oh, sorry. When I have been in abusive relationships, the way that it felt in the beginning was much different than how it felt in healthier relationships. There's fireworks, there's sparks, there's just a different energy to it. And the way I understand that is there's a resonance in that person where you are relating to trauma that is familiar. So for me, it was people who showed me hot and cold love. They were all about me one day and not about the next. And that was very similar to how my mom showed me love. So it was familiar. The person was often troubled or had a form of struggle that I wanted to help. And those relationships never last. They were like, what is the saying? Like, burn hard, die fast, or something like that.
Yeah, they do for sure burn out. And I think you went through your domestic abuse before you and I were friends, and that was, a significant amount of time now, and I can totally see the difference in who you are as a person now, which is the great part about the fact that we know each other so well. Me being a little bit more recent, it has takes time. It's some time, and when you find a really good person in a healthy relationship, it's learning that like those sparks and fireworks aren't.
Sometimes that's a bad sign.
Yeah, and I'm someone who's come from the past not great relationships. I'm like, where's this excitement? I need it. And I'm like, wow, that's not okay. Like, that's the thing that I need to work on, that otherwise will attract the next narcissistic or toxic relationship that if I don't get a handle on.
I think, like, the difference in the person that I'm with now, and we've been together for 6 years, there was still excitement, and there's still those butterflies, but it wasn't like, and he might be like, what, it wasn't like fireworks? it was like fireworks, but I can't describe it. There was all of that, but a feeling of safety. And my heart, and my heart was still traumatized from everything I had experienced before, but there was still a knowing that this person was safe. I could trust him. He would never intentionally hurt me or put me down or make me feel like he didn't love me. Like, I just knew that. Even when I would get insecure and, some of the old stuff would come back up because of your distrust that has been developed in the past, there was always a deep knowing that that's just me. That's what I've experienced. That's in my head. I trust him.
Comforting yourself. Yeah, and that's exactly it. There's looking for the good in the relationship, and when you're in a bad relationship, it's the love bombing that comes along with it as well. There's another word that's thrown out there, and it's the crazy trips and the adventures and the best. We're always giving you the best, and it's like, well, that's just another thing that they're using to get a hold on you, because one day they're gonna use that against you. Like, I gave you that, I did that for you, and now I'm gonna use that as a way of controlling you in the end. So it's learning how to be in a normal, healthy relationship and not bringing your past experiences into that one as well, or being like open about the communication of it.
I think it's gonna come in. This is just unavoidable. You would have had to probably do years of work, and even if you do years of work, it's still gonna come up. It's just how the body responds, unless I don't know, maybe you're someone who truly can just let shit go. I only know a few of those. Oh my god, I just lost my train of thought.
But it's learning to communicate that.
To be able to communicate your partner. But if you're with someone you can trust, hey, this is coming up for me right now. I feel like this. And allowing that person to, what's the word? Like, soothe your fears or reassure you. I've been in relationships where those insecurities would come up and I would voice them and I would be put down for them. You're needy, you're this, you need to whatever, which makes you feel worse, and then you continue spiraling.
Or it's all in your head. You're if you bring up something about an insecurity, it's probably when you're in the bad relationship, it's probably is true.
Yeah.
And that's where you now bring that into a good relationship, and I have to remind myself, being like, that's not true, that's not how this person would be to me. That's just my past acting up right now, and I need to self-soothe, but I can also learn to communicate that with a new relationship.
And I think allowing your partner to soothe you too sometimes, in reason. If it's happening all the time, okay, you need to like straighten your shit out.
Yeah, do a little bit more work. But yeah, it's having the communication, but also the understanding of yourself and saying, I am working on this, And I appreciate you as my partner supporting me and helping me in these times of needs. And I will continue to work on myself and continue to grow. But right now, like, this is the way
I'm at.
Yeah, this is what I need from you. And a really good partner, you know, will be there for you, but they won't use those insecurities against you. And
totally,
that's something that does happen in an unhealthy relationship. So
we're past our 20-minute mark, but do you, like, how did you guys want to wrap this up? Like, what else do you think you want to leave the audience with?
Leave.
If it doesn't feel right,
if you don't feel safe,
it may be hard, but just do it. Look at your resources.
Ask your friends. If it means relying on your friends or family for a bit, it's worth it.
Yeah, the rock bottom that you feel like you're in then at that moment may get worse.
Depending on yourself is always the safest bet.
Yeah, so I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys so much. This has been your episode of Companion Call.
first started playing music with Charlie, specifically punk music. Love punk rock. And then one day we were like, oh, let's go see the Pixies, because they're coming to Vancouver. They're playing with Weezer, another 90s alternative band. Afterwards, Charlie came up to me and was like, dude, like, we should start a band. Like, we should actually try and do music. That'd be so cool. Like, let's do it.
All right. All right, this one's called Slap a Bye Baby. He said, babe, I wanna be in that ass like a parasite. How do you think my touch is what heaven's like? How do you know like they scream when I go for the throat? How do you know what it's like to watch blood pour on my nose?
And so we go through that first quarantine, and it was a search for a drummer, because it was me and Zach on guitar. I was doing most of the singing, Charlie was on bass.
I was learning guitar and Lars was learning all kinds of instruments, so we just kind of messed around. And then it kind of got stale after a while because we couldn't really work off each other in that particular arrangement.
And we were just like desperate for someone who would be able to play drums, and then we'd be good to go, right? And so probably the most musical person in our grade at the time was a certain man named Knight O'Connor, who played guitar, played bass, and played the drums.
So, I mean, I knew everybody from high school. I knew Lars, Zach, and Charlie. And I knew that they were playing music together. And I knew that there was a party coming up that Charlie was throwing. So I went to that. And I managed to corner Lars and Charlie. And I was like, hey, you know, I know how to play drums. And I heard that you guys are down a drummer. I can play drums for you if you'd like that.
We started going, and Knight is a pretty rough drummer, and it was fun, but we were like, okay, this is a good place for this band to start. Like, this will work, we just gotta give it time and learn stuff. And we were like, all right, like, let's take a little break, right?
And then we figured it out, because Knight's a way better bassist than he is a drummer. Lars is a way better drummer than he is guitarist. I moved the keyboard because I'm much better at that than bass. And Zach stayed on guitar because he's so good.
And then we like played the best I'd ever played up at that point in any group setting ever. Played some of the most fun music, rough and raw, but exciting and new and fun. And we knew we would never go back to the old instruments. From that point on, we were like stuck in those spots. But I'd say our biggest influence was coming from Pink Floyd. Because we adored Pink Floyd as the typical high school stoners we were. We loved Pink Floyd, and we'd sit there and listen to Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall and dedicate hours to it and stuff. You know, way more important than schoolwork at the time. You know, you gotta get your listens in on some Pink Floyd records, you know. But as to who I would compare us to and who we sound like the most, well, we get a lot of people who say we sound like the Doors.
I've heard from a lot of people that we apparently sound like the Doors in terms of our musical arrangement.
Which is funny because I'm not even that big of a Doors fan. But Charlie's a massive Doors fan, and once again, that's where the Doors got their sound, was through those keys and stuff.
I don't think a lot of people have an answer for Knight's singing. He kind of just sings like Knight, he just shouts. I like it.
As far as genre goes, Lars and I came up with psychedelic funk and punk.
So a lot of bands, whether or not they're a one-hit wonder or whatever, a lot of bands have that song, like the song, their song. It's a song that people say, oh yeah, they sing blank. For Queen, it's probably Bohemian Rhapsody. For Led Zeppelin, you have to say it's Stairway to Heaven. Like Nirvana's It Smells Like Teen Spirit. So if I asked you, what's your song? What's the song for Big Long Baby?
Bugs.
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 Bugs?
But who gives a shit about insects?
I wrote Bugs about drug use and how it kind of affected me and how, there's that blasé attitude. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Roaches in my lung, roaches in my heart, kickstart. But it's about drugs, and it's got that kind of like evil feeling to it, about how it's super fast paced, and then it's, you're getting hit with it.
Give a shit about insects? Think you care too much? We don't takes care of Terraria. Give a shit about insects? Think you care too much?
That was the easiest song we've ever written too, and I think we finished that song in like three band practices. We actually like completed that song with the words, with everything. Yeah, it was by far the easiest song we've ever written, and the most excited I think we've ever been writing a song. It was very fun to write that one, because we were like, fuck, this is cool.
So I remember playing it, and I just sat there for, must have been like half an hour just trying to work it out. And then I got like the verse chorus down, and then I wrote this like slow, heavy part. And I was like, this is great. So I recorded it and I sent it to the band, and they're like, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, I just really channeled how I was feeling into the words and made a singable melody that still kind of felt punky and had that attitude. And then I brought the words into practice, and then we played it together, and it was done. That was, I think, probably one of the first songs that we sat back and were really proud of.
But yeah, Bugs was like, that was our first and only, thus far, masterpiece that we've made.
So yesterday, You talked about how this is a drug. You feel like you got your fix today?
Get up, Tom. Get up, Tom. 3. 4. Take 3 tackles. 1. 2. There you go.
It's a grind. It's not for, takes a special kind of someone to put their body through this for sure. There's nothing else like it. There's no other art form that does what wrestling does. It's part sport. It's part action. It's part drama. So you get a little bit of everything. At least that's what I see. But I also have been hitting the head a lot and I ramble, so.
You know, if you have a type of relationship with him that's like, you know, like mine, developed over the years with him, he's just down. He's just for real, you know? And like, he's just one of the most for real guys in the locker room that obviously I've known for 10 plus years.
I don't know, for me it's like going home. Like it's where I want to be, it's what I want to do. This is my team. This is my second family. This Lionsgate Dojo. Like, this is my crew.
Coaches, students, all that sort of stuff. We all care about, you know, what we got here. You know what I mean? And Tony's the top of the list when it comes to that. You know, he's a little bit humble. In a good way, though.
I'm my own worst critic, so
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Dennis Shinolu with your sports update at 1 p.m. The 2022 FIFA World Cup kicked off in Qatar yesterday with Ecuador beating the host nation 2-0. Ecuador's Ener Valencia put in 2 goals in his team's historic win. This marks the first time that a host nation has lost their opening match in a FIFA World Cup. In today's game in the tournament, the English team started strong with a big 6-2 win over Iran. Arsenal's youngster Bukayo Saka scored twice for the Three Lions in their winning effort, while Porto striker Mehdi Taremi's 2 goals were not enough to help bring Iran over the hump. Netherlands scored over Senegal in the 84th and 99th minute of their contest to get the 2-0 win. Goal scorer Cody Gakpo knocked in a header to get the go-ahead goal. In the US vs Wales game, a tie occurred after a Timothy Weah goal and a Gareth Bale penalty kick. This game marks the first time that Wales has qualified for the World Cup since 1958. Alphonso Davies is doubtful to make his World Cup debut against Belgium this Wednesday. The star wideback told TSN in an interview that he's ready to start. Although stating he wants to play, Davies has yet to be cleared by the Canadian medical staff. Canada's coach John Herdman didn't raise hope about Davies' status for Wednesday, stating he hasn't hit that top speed yet, and when you have hamstring injuries, that's always the key movement. For fans heading into the Khalifa International Stadium in Doha for the opening Group B match between England and Iran, the political situation in Iran was the focus of the game for fans prior to kickoff.
Iranian supporters outside the ground chant ahead of their nation's game with England, some wearing t-shirts with the messages reading "Woman, Life, Freedom," a reference to the women's protest movement roiling the country. People at the moment are fighting just to have their human rights, one fan told the AP, visibly moved while she spoke. She declined to give her name for security reasons and pleaded, "Be our voice for the families and people." I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The captains of 7 European nations will not be able to wear the One Love armbands that they planned on wearing as a statement to host nation Qatar in World Cup games, after threats from FIFA to give yellow cards to the players.
The threat by FIFA, soccer's world governing body of on-field punishments for players, has forced a number of teams to abandon plans for their captains to wear armbands that were seen as a rebuke to Qatar's human rights record. 7 European squads could have seen their captains given yellow cards, so the quick change of mind. Captains of all 32 teams will now have the opportunity to wear a more generic armband instead, with the slogan "No Discrimination" if they wish. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
It's a busy night tonight in the NHL with 6 Canadian teams in action. The Vancouver Canucks will be hosting Vegas at 7:30. Calgary goes away to Philadelphia to take on the Flyers. Edmonton will be kicking off a 3-game road trip against New Jersey. Winnipeg hosts Carolina. And the Toronto Maple Leafs welcome the New York Islanders, while the Ottawa Senators play in San Jose. In the 109th Grey Cup yesterday evening, the Toronto Argonauts beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 24-23. This win marks the 18th time that Toronto has won the Grey Cup, the most in CFL history. If the Winnipeg side won the game, this would have been a three-peat of Grey Cups. This game was tight until the end, as Argonauts backup Chad Kelly had to take the reins after a McLeod Bethel-Thompson injury, and he led a scoring drive. The game was finished when Robbie Smith blocked a Bombers field goal. The San Francisco 49ers take on the Arizona Cardinals in an NFC clash tonight. The Monday Night Football travels to Mexico City as the NFL's International Series wraps up. Mexico will be the 4th country that an NFL game is played in this year. The 5-4 49ers will be looking to extend their win streak to 3 games, while the 4-6 Cardinals are hoping to make it 2 in a row. The Cardinals may be short-handed. Colt McCoy is set to start over the injured Kyler Murray, while starters Hollywood Brown and Zach Ertz are set to miss out due to longer-term injuries. Kyrie Irving returned from his suspension with 14 points, and the Brooklyn Nets beat short-handed Memphis 127-115. Grizzlies head coach Taylor Jenkins said they faded a bit in the final period.
Tough loss. It's kind of ran out of steam in the fourth quarter, but really proud of our guys' effort. I mean, it was I thought a heck of a first 3 quarters, 3-point game. Just, didn't make enough plays in the fourth quarter. They got hot. Obviously, they had a number of guys play well, but really proud of our fight.
Those were your sports update to 1 o'clock. I'm Dennis Shinolu, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.